Nazareth is a Scottish rock band formed in 1968 by the Shadettes in Dunfermline, UK. Developed around the same time as other famous hard rock artists of the time, such as Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, and Led Zeppelin. Recognized as one of the most notable hard rock bands in the history of the genre. The band's most commercially successful album is Hair of the Dog, 1975, with over 2 million copies sold worldwide. The classic lineup is considered to be a quartet that included vocalist Dan McCafferty, guitarist Manny Charlton, bassist and guitarist Pete Agnew and drummer Daryl Sweet. The lineup existed from 1968 to 1990. Currently, the original member is bassist Pete Agnew. Vocalist Dan McCafferty, according to fans, was the business card of the group, left the band in 2014 for health reasons. In the 60s in the UK there were many rock bands who wanted to gain fame and stable income. One such provincial group was the Shadettes, a group from the Scottish city of Dunfermline, founded in 1961 by Peter Agnew. It was originally a cover band. In early 1964, drummer Daryl Sweet joined the quintet, and a year later Dan McCafferty joined the group. However, the new group had little chance of success. London was the center of musical life. Record labels, producers, magazines, and finally the public were concentrated there. Without conquering London, it was impossible to count on recognition across the country. According to Peter Agnew, the music industry in England has never given much thought to looking for young talent in Scotland. In the meantime, the group performed in local clubs, usually it was the Belleville Hotel and Kinema Ballroom. The management of such clubs insisted that the band play cover versions of the UK Top 30 hit parade. Every week when they performed at the Belleville Hotel, they were forced to learn 3 songs from the hit parade, then they rehearsed them on Sunday afternoon and went on stage that evening. After 3 years of playing local venues, the Shadettes recruited guitarist Manny Charlton, who previously played in another local band, the Mark V. In December 1968, the band parted ways with 5th member Alfie Murray and adopted the more catchy name Nazareth. It was inspired by the lines from the Waits song I Pulled Into Nazareth, feeling 'bout half past dead. The group made a lot of noise, dressed extremely brightly for their conservative town and was eventually noticed by millionaire Bill Feely. The result of Feely's efforts was a contract with the Pegasus label. In mid-1971, Nazareth moved to London. In the same 1971, the band recorded their debut album, called Nazareth, at Trident Studios. Although the album was critically acclaimed, it was not a commercial success. However, a happier fate awaited 2 singles from him. Published in 1972, Dear John entered the top 3 songs in France, and Morning Dew was popular in Germany. This was enough to keep the band's tour schedule booked for the entire year of 1972. At home, both singles failed. Subsequent tours in England and Europe with Atomic Rooster did not change the situation. The musicians do not despair and start recording the second album called Exercises. It was written at the same studio in London, and the then little-known Roy Thomas Baker becomes the producer. Influenced by the Grateful Dead's American Beauty album, Exercises was generally a lighter sound than the previous one. However, the change in style did not justify itself. The album failed, like its predecessor. After the release of Exercises in 1972, music critics stated that the group did not follow any one musical direction. There was no unity of style in the compositions, although the material was made at a fairly professional level. However, the musicians, ignoring criticism, continued to experiment and hone their skills during rehearsals and tours. The musicians of the Nazareth group were friends with the musicians of Deep Purple. In 1972, Nazareth was asked to play as the opening act for the then popular Deep Purple on an American tour. The tour in the United States was very successful, and Roger Glover becomes the producer of their next album. The group's third album, Razamanas, was released in May 1973. With the release of this disc, a turning point came in the work of Nazareth. The group gains popularity in Europe and Japan. In the British charts, the album took 11th place. Compositions: Razamanas, Broken Down Angel, Bad Bad Boy become hits and are performed by the band on tour. Commercial success comes to Nazareth. Nazareth's next work, the album Loud and Proud, recorded in November 1973, repeatedly consolidates the band's breakthrough on the world stage. The album takes first place in the charts in Sweden, Switzerland, and Finland, second place in Germany, sells well in England and reaches number 10 there. In general, 1973 was a very successful year for the band. Melody Maker readers called Nazareth their brightest hope. Continuing their collaboration with Roger Glover, the group released the album Rampant in 1974. The recording of this record is the first time the musicians use keyboards. They invited a friend from Deep Purple, keyboardist John Lord. Musically, Rampant was a step towards metal and was the last album to be produced by Roger Glover. After him, Manny Charlton took the place at the producer's console. Manny Charlton, many years later, explained the reasons for the end of cooperation with Glover. Our general opinion was that Roger was not really striving for what the group wanted. We felt that we were going in the wrong direction, and then I said that I'm going to produce our albums. My first production job was the song Love Hurts. We recorded it in some dirty studio with no hopes, and the record company was waiting for a new hit. When the song was ready, we thought it was great. After that we started recording the rest of the material for the album. We weren't going to put it on the album because we already had Guilty for the album. Jerry Moss at A&M Records listened to it and said, "That's a hit. Replace Guilty with this song." Based on the album The Hair of the Dog, he renewed the contract for us. The next singles, My White Bicycle and Holy Roller, were recorded with the hope of success. In 1975, Nazareth released the album Hair of the Dog, produced by Manny Charlton. This album featured Hair of the Dog, Miss Misery, Guilty, Changing Times, Beggar's Day, Rose in Heather, Whiskey Drinking Woman and Please Don't Judas Me. Also in 1975, the Greatest Hits compilation was released, which included the composition Love Hurts, from the repertoire of the Everly Brothers, which gained worldwide fame thanks to Nazareth and has since been performed at each of their concerts. In the same year, vocalist Dan McCafferty, in the wake of Nazareth's success, released a solo project called Mac Cafferty. The album includes cover versions of famous compositions by other artists: Bob Dylan, Neil Young, the song Out of Time by the Rolling Stones and others. In March 1976, a work called Close Enough for Rock and Roll was released, produced like the previous one by Manny Charlton. The highlight of the album is the composition Telegram, which is a work of 4 parts, describing the hard touring life of rock musicians. In Britain, the album enjoyed modest success, but in Canada, Nazareth won at least 50 gold and platinum awards in the 1970s. In the US, it was a big time for Nazareth, and the American label A&M Records established the group as their primary wards. Mountain, who owned the rights to Nazareth's old material, decided to cash in by selling the band's old records. Around Christmas 1975, a Nazareth Hits collection appeared on the shelves, which, however, did not hit the charts. In November 1977, they re-released an extended 45 Hot Tracks EP which contained Love Hurts, This Flight Tonight, Broken Down Angel and Hair of the Dog. It reached number 15 on the chart and was Nazareth's last top 20 hit. In 1976, band manager Bill Feely died in a plane crash. The musicians admitted that without his help, Nazareth would never have crossed the borders of England, not to mention other countries. In November 1977, the band's 9th album, Expect No Mercy, was released. It marked Nazareth's move into the Hour category. Nazareth recorded a cover version of Ray Charles's classic hit Busted and Randy Newman's Gone Dead Train, which peaked at number 49 on the singles chart. Another single, Place in Your Heart, didn't even reach number 70. In 1978, before starting work on a new album, at the initiative of Charlton, Zil Clemenson was invited to Nazareth, who became the 5th member of the group. The album No Mean City was released in January 1979. The single May the Sun Shine reached number 22 in the UK charts. Another single, Star, released in July 1979, did not rise above 54th place. This was Nazareth's last hit on the singles chart. In the next album, Malice in Wonderland, released in 1980, the band softened the sound, adding a bit of pop style to the invariable rock and roll. The album is produced by Jeff Baxter. It is worth noting in the album the compositions written by Clemenson, Big Boy and Hearts Grown Cold. In 1980, the Mountain label was on the brink of bankruptcy. Agnew and McCafferty, instead of rehearsing material, were on the phones, desperately trying to negotiate money. Clemenson, seeing this, and wanting above all to play, leaves the group. As a result, the group signed a contract with NEMS. On this label, in February 1981, the 12th album of Nazareth, The Full Circle, was released, which included the composition Cocaine, also with Zil Clemenson. Nazareth's music was now a mix of rock, reggae, and blues, with lyrics infused with social and political themes. The album did not rise above the 60th place in the charts. The band soon added a young guitarist/songwriter from Glasgow, who had previously played with Clemenson, named Billy Rankin. At the same time, the brilliant keyboard player John Locke also joined the band. With this lineup, Nazareth released the double live album It's Naz, recorded in Vancouver in May 1981. As before, Nazareth did not do without rock classics. This time it was J.J. Callis' Cocaine and ZZ Top's Tush. This album sold well all over the world and, thanks to the keyboard part of John Locke, had an atypical sound for the group. The band's next album, 2XS, was released in 1982. During this period, disagreements began between the band members and manager Jim White, which served as one of the reasons for the departure of John Locke from the group. Another reason was exhausting tours. The 2XS sold well in the States and Europe. In 1983, the Sound Elixir album was released. Commercially it turned out to be a failure. MCA did not seriously deal with its promotion, and besides, it was released only in the USA, and appeared in Britain only in 1990. Soon Billy Rankin leaves the band to do solo work. The musicians do not lose heart and record the album The Catch in 1984, but it does not become successful either and spent the rest of the year on the next tour. The band continues to play shows all over the world, while recording the main tracks of the disc for the next album Cinema in Detroit, Michigan, USA, which is released in 1986. In the same year, Dan McCafferty recorded his second solo album called Into the Ring. Dan McCafferty, lyrics and music were written by Dan McCafferty and Manny Charlton. In 1986 to 1988, Nazareth continued touring, including a tour of Eastern Europe and giving an open-air concert to an audience of 150,000 with Europe in Bombay. Since July 1988, the band has been focusing on their 17th studio album, Snakes and Ladders, which was released the following year. Joey Bolin was the producer. In early 1990, the lack of support from the label exacerbated the tensions in the group, and Manny Charlton, after 22 years in the group, decides to leave. The three remaining members agree that the only logical replacement for him could be Billy Rankin. Billy accepts the offer and joins Nazareth. Nazareth spends the rest of the year touring Europe and Brazil. One of the parts of the tour was a trip to the USSR, which included 12 concerts in Moscow and 10 concerts in Leningrad, which gathered 22 and 16,000 spectators at each concert. In 1991, a more extensive tour of the USSR took place. As the work on new songs and rehearsals is completed, by the end of the summer the group goes into the studio to record and mix the album No Jive, which is released in Russia under a license, but due to the poor organization of the sale by the licensee, it is sold poorly. In February 1992, the album was released, received rave reviews from critics, followed by a tour of Europe, including the first trip to England since 1985. In 1993, No Jive was released in the US, received excellent reviews and sold well. In 1994, the band recorded the Move Me album, and with the introduction of their new label, Polydor, things were going well. In late 1994, after an acoustic tour, Rankin left the band, and Nazareth recruited guitarist Jimmy Murison and keyboardist Ronnie Lehigh. On April 30, 1999, when the band arrived at their first show, drummer Daryl Sweet felt unwell. He fell before reaching the ambulance, and soon the doctors reported that he was dead. Devastated by the tragic event, the band cancelled the tour and returned to Scotland. The future of Nazareth remained unclear for the next few months. After several meetings, the group decides that Daryl would not want them to break up. As a tribute to Daryl, the band chose Lee Agnew, Pete's eldest son, to replace Nazareth on drums. After several months of rehearsals, the band was ready to tour. For several years Nazareth played all over the world and in Europe with the support of Uriah Heep, and in March 2001 they performed in England for the first time in many years. In October 2001 the band played a gig in Glasgow which was recorded on video and later released on DVD under the title Homecoming, as well as the Homecoming album, but with a different show. The whole of 2002 was spent in performances, and soon Ronnie Lehigh decided to leave the group, because he was too tired from constant concerts. In 2007, the band recorded a new studio album, The News, which was released in early 2008. In 2011, a more successful album was released, stylistically close to all the classic records of the group of the 70s. According to the musicians, the main task for them while working on the disc was to bring back the original sound and the spirit of the classic rock and roll of the 70s. The musicians deliberately abandoned the computer processing of solo parts and overdub recording. The album was mixed in early November 2010. In August 2013, Dan McCafferty was forced to leave Nazareth due to a respiratory illness, but was still able to record Rock and Roll Telephone with the band. As he himself stated on this occasion, going into the studio and singing is not the same as giving concerts. I can always record another album, but every time I go on stage, spend 1 hour and 45 minutes there and charge people for coming to see me, I can't do that. On February 22, 2014, it became known that Scottish singer Linton Osborne became the new vocalist of the group. In January 2015, Linton Osborne posted an official message to fans on his Facebook page, where he stated the following: "I am no longer a member of Nazareth. My voice didn't catch on, either for myself or for the band. I would like to thank Pete Agnew, Jimmy Murison, and Lee Agnew for the opportunity. Of course, I want to say thank you to Dan for his support and encouragement. But most of all, I want to thank the fans. You are really cool devils. Just because of meeting you, I can say that I did not live a year in vain. Hope to see you at my own gigs in the future. I also want to wish my successor in Nazareth all the very best in 2015 and all the years to come." On February 13, it became known that Carl Sentence, known for his participation in projects such as Crocus and Tokyo Blade, became the new vocalist. Current lineup: Carl Sentence, vocals; Jimmy Murison, guitar; Pete Agnew, bass guitar; Lee Agnew, drums.